All right, here we are again for the movement. Welcome. For those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, my name is Zoe Levine, and we're here to create a little bit more movement in our day, not in an exercisey sort of way, but in the kind of way that we're gonna piece by piece, tiny movement by tiny movement, build up a set of habits that will quite frankly transform your whole body, change everything. And I know that sounds crazy for the little simple movements that we're doing, but this is what I've been doing for years and years and years, and this is where the magic happens, the tiny little things that we do every day. So hi, Paula. Let me see who popped in. Hi, is it Joanne? Anyway, you can let me know if you want me to pronounce your name right. I would love to. So welcome. We're going to get started today with a little review of what we did last week. So the homework, home practice, work practice, everyday practice, easy everyday movement, however, whatever we want to call it, that we worked with last week was just the idea of taking a moment in your day and create some room to breathe, which in my years of teaching is typically one of the hardest things for anyone to do. So in the chat, if you want to let me know, like, yeah, I totally did it. I did it. And you want credit for it. Great. Do that. I would love to give you a little virtual high five, good work and all of that. And even if you didn't, that's okay too. I almost don't expect anybody this first week. We're not even used to this idea of having kind of a weekly thing to cultivate and to think about yet. So I will remind you week to week. Did it a couple of times. Great. So that's a big deal. So even if it wasn't a daily habit, a couple of times is still kind of a miracle. Practicing breathing into my back. Yes, that's beautiful. So that is a big deal. And you get huge points for all of those things if you thought about it even once in between these sessions. And the more we talk about thinking of things in between, the more you'll start to do it. You'll get used to this pattern that we create for ourselves. All right, so we're going to start with a review of what we did last week, just so we covered so much and it was so much of an introduction last week. This week, we get to kind of settle into the movement a little bit more, and we'll introduce a new, really simple tool that I would encourage you to do on the daily. And we'll talk about where to put that in your day. Yay, Rachel. Okay. So let's start with just the idea of breathing into your spaces. I invite you, most of us are working from home today, it seems like. So I invite you to sit in a chair if you have one nearby. Hi, Diane. There's going to be some names that I won't be able to say the first name, but just sit tall in a chair for a moment, whatever that means to you. We'll get into what that means to me and what that should mean to us in a year or months from now, weeks from now. For now, just sit tall in a chair. I don't recommend, if you're sitting tall, by kind of lifting your chest all the way. I don't recommend that. I don't know if you remember, but maybe we'll start here, that idea of breathing into your kidney space. So maybe just take your hands to your low back ribs in that kidney area for a moment, just in sitting. And can you find a place where you can inhale and feel a widening in that kidney space, or like a dropping and widening? Just try that a few times and you'll feel that kind of narrow, not sharp or tight, but just kind of narrowing in and then inhaling. It's like a balloon opening. It could be so slight, and then letting it narrow. Notice if you pop your ribs up and try to breathe into that space, it's harder to feel kind of a billowing open, right? So notice if you can find that here. And that's something I'm going to encourage you to be able to find as we do the next breathing exercise. It's not the popped crunch, crushing the kidneys and the back of the heart. It's kind of opening the back of the heart, opening the kidney space, feeling like there's breath behind your heart and breath behind your kidneys. Just imagine. If that's a weird thing for you, don't worry. I'll pull you through this whole time together. So now, once you have the ribs easy, one hand to your chest, one hand to your belly, you take a breath in, whatever your breath is, and notice which hand gets the most movement. For some of us, it's only that chest hand opening. For some of us, just that belly wants to open and the chest isn't moving at all. So just notice. And I'm going to give you a kind of a reminder breathing exercise to help you with either, and for all of us with both, that you can bring into the daily. So the first one, I'm going to call it a refresh breath. And it's the one that's going to help you if you really can't relax your belly, if you can't breathe into your belly well, if there's not an ease there, this might help with that, might help to spread the breath all over. So you're going to take an inhale, and on your exhale, it's like you're going to blow through a straw or blow out some candles, blow them all out until your belly kind of shrinks to get all the air out. So it's really shrinking. Then wait for your breath to inhale, let it all go, and just let the breath kind of accidentally inhale itself. And you can try that, and you can relax again, and then try it when you're ready. It's like you're blowing out a bunch of candles out in front of you. Gently, you can be gentle. Just all the candles. The belly will squeeze tight all the way, and then you kind of drop it all to inhale. So it's kind of gets your brain out of it, like, oh, what do I have to move to inhale? It's like, no, just let everything go and let your inhale do what it wants, which is going to fill up all the space, including your belly. Try that one more time. Exhale all your air. Blowing out all the candles, all the candles. Could you keep going? Could you keep going? Does your belly kind of shrink? It's like you're squeezing all the air out of your belly, and then let it all go. And that whole thing's going to fill up. And it's like refreshing the balloon. So sometimes if our breath gets shallow, that's a very stress response sort of breath. Whether or not you feel stressed, you probably will if your breath is shallow, no matter what's going on. This is a good way to just it's like wringing out a sponge that's been a little rigid or stuck. You're going to squeeze it all out and just let it, oh, there you are. It's a refresh. It's a refresh breath. You get to get rid of all the stale air. I heard yoga teachers say that. It's not exactly what's happening, but it's a beautiful image, right? Getting rid of all the stale air and then letting it flood in with new possibilities. Okay, so that's number one. That's helpful for just finding more space. And then you just come back to normal. I love that, Jenny. It works. Good, right? I mean, after a meeting, right? If you're just like, oh, that meeting was frustrating or just a little bit annoying, like I squeeze all that out and just freshen it up. Just something new. Or a hard day before you get into work, squeeze it all out, freshen up. If that's useful, take it. Good anyway for if things are stuck. The other piece is through bigger movement. So this idea, we talked about this idea of a side bend that's not quite a side bend, but kind of a stretch up and over. So we can do this sitting. A lot of us were doing it standing before. Watch this though. So you got one arm up, the other arm is wrapped around your ribs, and I would invite the ribs to drop a little bit so you fill up the kidneys wide in the back again. You're not crushing the kidneys. So there's a little bit of like a hugging coziness, right? And then there's that reach up. So on your inhale, you can really feel like you're trying to spread your ribs out wide, even in the back. And then on your exhale, you could reach up further, but keep your ribs kind of pinned down. Inhale, spread your ribs wide. Exhale, you can imagine the diaphragm lengthening up inside the ribs and the arm reaching higher, but the ribs kind of staying where you put them. And you can try one more time, inhaling. Really filling that space, right? That's something you don't do often. And then exhale, still reach as you let the diaphragm kind of fall upward, and exhale. I'm doing it one more time because it feels good. And I think I can go a little further. And notice I'm not going anywhere, but there's the reach of it that feels like there's space. And then let the arm rest down by your side and still sitting. Just take your breath into both sides. And tell me you don't feel a difference side to side, right? The one side we just opened, you might even feel more grounded in your seat. You might feel like there's more space for your breath on that side, which is a win also. And you're going to feel uneven, right? There might be more opening around that shoulder that you don't feel on the other side. It feels a little sticky on the other side. I mean, what do? We spent less than a minute just reaching an arm in the air. It's not a big deal. This is not stuff you're like, oh, I don't have time for that. You're just going to be like, I'm in the middle of a thought and I don't have to have my fingers on the keys right now, or I'm in the middle of a break out in the field and I can just do a reach, right? And even though it seems so simple, you're not doing this on the regular, right? It's not you might reach up to grab something real quick and then put it down, but we're losing a lot of that real reach opening around the armpit, okay? So the other side, just to review, drop the ribs back. So we're not going to pop up because you got the breath and the kidneys, which we already established. And no matter where you can reach yourself, like even if it's more toward the front, we're all built and put together differently. You can find a place, great. If that's hard, more toward the front, whatever works for you. Arm can be up, ribs dropped. So it's not about opening the chest. just, it's like up and to the side, like you're reaching something really far away that's slightly over to the side. So you can inhale and see if you can feel that breath into the ribs as you inhale. Like you're trying to accordion the ribs open. And on your exhale, you reach more higher, but the ribs kind of drop, and you can imagine the diaphragm is lengthening up inside the rib cage on all sides. Just imagine as you reach up, it's like your arm's going to pull your diaphragm. Just imagine. You can inhale, fill up that space, and exhale, reach even higher. And you're only going, it's not about going far. That might tweak your back if you're not, core isn't quite supportive yet. So straight up, slightly to the side, that's fine. The exhale, the ribs kind of stay, but that you imagine the diaphragm and the arm going a little bit higher. Last time. Higher, 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 higher. And then you can let the arm drop and just settle in, wiggle out. Let that breath drop in wherever it's going to. Again, be careful of what I'll call fake good posture, which I used to do all the time. I was a ballerina, stage presence, right? But that's an awful way to spend the daily. So just hang out. We're not on stage right now. Just hang out where you can feel your kidney space breathing. You can sit tall on your sitz bones, whatever that means to you right now. And notice if you have a little more freedom in your breath. Right? And breath is not only the center of everything in terms of breathing is important, it's that, but also the body mechanics and the physicality of allowing for a big breath sets up nearly everything that we will continue to talk about as we move forward. So for now, just enjoy the fact that you got to change. It feels different. You have more room. If you find yourself in stressful situations, before a stressful situation, during, after, use both of those tools, that clearing, refreshing breath, just to start over. It's a do-over for your breath to reset. And then just finding space, and then you can get back to it. When you have more room to breathe, getting back to it is a great way to refocus your brain, more oxygen, right? All the things, and you'll just feel more comfortable in your body. Are you feeling a little bit of that so far? Great. My second favorite thing ever is our, probably one of my favorite little stretches, breaks ever, is our next movement habit. Let me make sure. Yeah, so let's quickly stand up. You be near your desk. You're all there anyway. Just as a reminder, our standing assessment that we did, remember I talked about some of us do it, I'm going to exaggerate it. Some of us do this version of kind of butt stuck to hamstrings, sitting on our hamstrings. So a lot of the stretches to unwind from sitting, right? Because most of us sit some version of this. A lot of us, maybe not most. So there's a lot of hamstring sits bones off of the hamstring opening that wants to happen here. All right, let me just get you to feel your sits bones on your chair real quick before we get into that sucker. Just so you know what the heck I'm talking about. So sitting in your tail, or sitting on your chair, tall. Tuck your tail under, so feel that kind of slouch behind your sits bones, and then you're gonna go up to the tippy top and go too far. Kind of go really as far as you can. Some of you are not gonna go that far. We're almost in front of your sits bones. And then go up, you feel there's a perch, and then a falling down behind it. And then a up, perch to the top, and then a kind of, it's hard, it's less falling and more work to get it to the front. And then you kind of go up to the tippy top, and fall, right? And up to the tippy top and press too far, and up to the tippy top and fall. And so sits bones, those bones that you sit on. Can you feel that? Just try that a couple more times. So tucking and tilting, I'll turn this into more of a cat cow, right? You can do that at a desk too. Let's just do that all together. You can do a little tuck under, now that you got your pelvis moving, curling your spine. You can do that open, stick your tail out, and then the tuck. I'm mostly concerned today with the pelvis, but just know moving your spine is a lovely, lovely thing to do in general when you have a moment. So see if you can find that place where you're perched just at the tippy top, not too far. It's like right before you might fall back. See if you can get up to those points. those are your sits bones. And what happens when we're sitting for long periods of time, they just get a little sticky. The hamstrings get tight because we're in this bent position a lot. So whether it's that, or I think we've all probably sit too much, just cars, eating, all the things. This is your desk, so you can stand up. We played with this the other day. I'm going to pretend this is the desk surface, so you could be on your forearms. And just notice something about this. When your hamstrings are tight, you're going to do this kind of tuck under, and it's going to be hard to reach the desk, right? You're going to feel a pull on your low back, as opposed to being able to kind of stick your tail out and get your sits bones lifted. So if you have to put your hands on your desk, if that's a stretch for you, that's where you're at, right? It's not, oh, I can get really low by squishing my spine. Try to keep that long head to tail. So your hands could be on the desk. Your forearms, if you have the space to kind of have that open tail, that can be it. Then from here, there's just a million variations of this. You could have your feet sits bone distance apart and just hang out here reading. Maybe you have a memo you're reading. You could have it open here. As long as your whole office starts to be okay with having like butts up in the air like this, I really feel like it's important to be okay with that, or find a little, private space where you have more room for yourself. You can also take your feet further wider and start kind of shifting your hips side to side, little side. It's easier at home, right, to find this kind of space. Just that shift side to side. And again, noticing it's not the tuck, so your hands might have to be a little higher, right? Some of you might be here. That's your hamstring stretch already. Some of you might be down lower. And this might be sticky side to side. There's a lot of tightness that can go on back there. Just glide it. But hugely, hugely important, that back line. This is going to be all the things. It's going to help you stand better, which is going to improve your knees, your low back. It's all the things are attached to this, especially low backs, especially those tight necks and shoulders, can all be coming from pelvis being locked up. This is just one of many things I will share with you to start unlocking the pelvis. So remember, feet can be together, tail open, legs can be wide, tail open, anything can be on the desk, hands, forearms. Bonus points, if you get that side body length, we talked about this at the end of our last session. You're up on a counter or desk, right? That reach or wall, you can push against a wall, but that length of your side body at the same time. And here you would just do your best to get that tail open. Sometimes you even need to bend your knees a little bit to get that open tail. You can try to get to straight legs. You don't ever have to stay static. There's a lot of freedom in moving. You can bend one knee side to side. But the idea, you can bend and straighten both knees. The idea is getting those sits bones away from your hamstrings, the backs of the legs, right? That's sits bones toward. You can tuck your tail and feel that. And the opposite is that tilt, get them open. Okay, so I'm going to have you stand up. If you've been with me doing this the whole time, ideally you have been, you can find your way to standing and see if you feel a difference in where your pelvis wants to hang out. Right. And I'd be curious too, Laura, last week, I know you were saying my quads are so grippy. They might still be grippy because that might be more of a front line tightness for you. But notice for some of you, if it's a little bit easier to stand with your butt not squished against your hamstrings, just a little space under your butt cheeks, a little freedom of your sits bones without squishing your hamstrings. So see if it's a little easier to stack. You could take a quick little kind of walk in a circle around your space, even if it's small, and just feel that you got a little, like hips feel a little looser, a little bit more free. And then lastly, have a seat on your chair once more. It's not another exercise, just checking in because we're finishing. Sit on your sits bones. Is it any easier to feel easily perched on your sits bones? For some of you already, just with that, you're already going to feel like, oh yeah, I could hang out here and it's a little bit easier to sit up tall rather than always needing to be here, which you're still going to want to come back to. That's fine. But goals as we move forward, this is just easier, more natural, which is going to mean things are stacked, which is going to be less neck, shoulder, low back, wrists, out, like all the things you could possibly tell me are related to this. So let's start playing with this first. Last thing I always want to leave you with, so this is what we're calling the happy hamstrings desk stretch. So the thing I want to leave you with, when and where would you do this? It's like, again, the transition. So it's like, could you do it before you get down to sit at a desk or after you stand up? We could start thinking about like when you stand up to go get coffee or whatever. I don't know. I've not really had an office job, so I don't really know all the things, but you tell me. Like when you get to those transitions, like you're standing up to head to a meeting before you gather all your things, do the stretch. On days like this, it's a little harder, but even transitions, you can use your meetings as transitions. You can use getting up for lunch as a transition, and just, it could be 10 seconds and you win, right? You don't have to spend a lot of time. You don't have to spend 10 minutes in that position, but 10 seconds here and there and during a lot of the transitions of your day, that adds up. And you're going to feel so different when you start noticing how these things add up. Okay. Any questions about that? Our homework for the week.
Feels good.
Awesome. And it's just 2 of these baby steps. There's so much more, but just little easy things. Find room to breathe. Can be 5 seconds. Find this little happy hamstrings desk stretch. See where you want to put it through your day, and that's it. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. I'll see you next week with more. I'd love a full report on how this one goes along with the breath.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.